Hello, it's Luke. I'm here to talk about unemployment. So I'm going to start with history. So in June of 1993, the U.S., San Diego, and California included in that was just getting over and recovering from the Cold War. So the unemployment was increased due to a market contraction, which happened due to all of the spending um, on weapons and other economics factors in the Cold War. So the percentage was 8.4% in June 1993. Fast forward 10 years to June 2003, California, San Diego is starting to recover from the Cold War and all the spending that happened there. So the unemployment rate decreased to about 5.8%, but teenagers were 19.3% of all unemployed people, which is pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. Um, just 7 years later, the Great Recession happened, and I'll explain what that is. Basically, in the Great Recession, the housing market basically failed. So all of the assets that the banks were investing in, mainly houses, and just the asset, we have the definition down here, which is anything of value owned by a business or individual. In this case, we're talking about banks, and houses were securities for them. So when the value of the house depreciated, it kind of crashed the whole housing market, which increased unemployment to about 11%, which was record breaking for that time. But then, just 10 years later, April 2020, 16.1% people were unemployed due to the global pandemic, which is very, very high for unemployment. Here's a little graphic just of those stats. And then down here, the average unemployment rate for high school dropouts was about around 18.5%, which is crazy. Um, which is just crazy. Like 18.5% of high school dropouts are unemployed in 2022. Some more statistical data that is regarding unemployment just in general. The average unemployment rate right now is about 4.70%. And the average high school dropout rate is about 5.3%, which is higher than the national average of high school dropouts, that's insane. And then we have the long-term average unemployment rate, which is basically after a certain amount, if you're unemployed after a certain amount of time, based on the definition of being unemployed, which is essentially you're able to be employed but you aren't, and like you're qualified to be employed but you aren't. That long-term average is about 7.1%, I believe, or about 7.1, 7.2%. Another statistic, amount of high school students in California. I couldn't find the data for just San Diego, but in California, there's about 573,000 students. And if we use that 18.5% of students um, that are unemployed, the dropout rate from the last slide, we get about 55,000 high school students that are dropouts. So that's a crazy statistic, but that obviously isn't the real number because that's just based on my math. But 55,011 high school students. Now, what does the Bible have to say about this? So, 1 Timothy 5 states that if anyone does not provide for his relatives and the members of his household, he's denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, which is basically that's just stating that we need to provide, and if we deny provision for not just our family but anyone, like if we just don't provide, which is unemployment, then we are denying our faith in uh, Jesus' provision and everything he did for us because we're not following after him. 1 Thessalonians 4 basically states that although we're supposed to mind our own affairs, we are ordered to work and we're instructed to work so that we can show the glory of God through our work. And just a couple verses before that was the verse that is a little bit more famous than this one, which is those who do not work, do not eat. And again, we're instructed to work. Matthew 25 states that, truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So what Jesus is saying in this parable is that we still need to provide for the poor and the needy like he provided for us. So we can't just disregard them and take this stance of just caring only about ourselves. We have to also help provide, and that's why this solution is very important for unemployment. That's why we need to work towards lessening unemployment, but also helping those who are unemployed to, get a job or maybe get more education, etc. So yeah, that's most of what I had to say.